Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another MindfulBit podcast with me, your host, Cory Kelly, founder and creator of MindfulBit, where I give you mindfulness tips and tricks to hopefully help you accomplish your dreams and goals. The main purpose of this podcast and MindfulBit in general is to help you feel supported, encouraged, empowered, thoughtful, and capable of accomplishing your dreams. Today, we're going to be talking about safety. I have a tagline and I say, stay safe, stay curious, stay mindful. And the very first thing is stay safe. What does that mean? Why do I think it's so important to include it as the MindfulBit tagline? What impact has it had on my life, the idea of safety, and what impact might it have on yours? So I hope you're excited today as we explore the topic of safety, physical safety, psychological safety. And I just want to have a disclaimer here right in the beginning that I am a white male. My experience with safety is going to be quite different due to my privilege. I see and I understand that. And I was talking to my husband this morning and I said, I really have rarely felt physically unsafe in my life. And I thought to myself, wow, that's very interesting because there's probably a lot of people who feel physically unsafe. And if you don't feel physically safe, well, you can't even begin to think about psychological safety at that point. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I want to invite you to go to a quiet place, maybe go take a walk. Get yourself into a thoughtful mindset here, just open and flexible. Allow yourself to receive what's coming down the pipeline for you here in this moment. I think it is a true miracle and blessing that we are communicating at this point in time. And I think to myself, it's for a reason. So if you're listening to this podcast, I think there's something here that is just for you. So I'm very excited to have you. And let's dive in. So safety. Why do I say stay safe? I think for a long time I felt unsafe. I felt very unsafe. And I think safety is the crucial foundational layer for mindfulness. There is the hierarchy of needs. I don't know if you all have seen that particular image, but you basically start with your basic needs: food, shelter, air, and then you kind of move up that. And the higher you go on the hierarchy of needs, the more complex and thoughtful you are allowed to become. But you truly cannot exist in a thoughtful mindset, a mindful mindset, if you don't feel safe. And I think safety is one of the foundational layers on that particular hierarchy of needs. I don't recall seeing it on that image, physical and psychological safety, but to me, I feel that it's there and it's important, and it's as important as maybe not food, but at least it's the next level up. Physical and psychological safety. So when I say the word safe, I want you to kind of imagine what comes up for you. Is it a person? Is it a place? Is it a childhood memory that you have that you just really felt safe? And what does that mean? What does it mean to feel safe? For me, safety means I can fully express my authentic self. And the distance from who I am to who I portray myself to be is exactly zero. There's no extra filters that have to happen. I don't have to modify my behavior in any way to accommodate others. It's a true space of self-expression and authenticity. And I've noticed for me, I gravitate more towards psychological safety. I since I've never really experienced the physically unsafe part of the story, I tend to only focus on the mentally and psychological safety aspect of it. But let's start with the physical, because I think just because I don't experience it doesn't mean it's not the very first barrier to safety in general. Physical safety is a huge thing for a lot of people, especially those that don't feel safe. I mean, I'm immediately thinking of people who are in physically abusive relationships. I think we learn physical safety as a child due to the way we're raised. Do we feel safe with our parents, physically safe, physically taken care of? I was talking with my husband earlier about this topic, and he brought up, how people feel about the police, especially minorities, and how a lot of people feel physically unsafe around policemen, and how, as a white male, that's something that I have never really had to experience. I've never had to feel that physical anxiety, really my physical self feeling threatened in a situation with police. And I think how disturbing that must be to feel unsafe around people whose sole purpose is to serve and protect. And what other situations do people feel physically unsafe in? I'm very curious about this, because this, like I said, isn't something that I can technically relate to. I'm a pretty big guy. Like, I'm about 5'10", 180 pounds. I don't really feel that worried about a lot of physical stuff. And of course, I live in the United States, where there's no wars going on right now, and yes, there's violence, but it's rare. It's not something that enters my mind every day. And I think about the people who live in maybe warring countries or places with civil unrest, and the anxiety and the energy that must be taking up their lives due to this physical aspect of safety, and feeling unsafe is just, it's really hard for me to grasp. I know it's out there. It's hard for me to relate to. And I mean, how privileged am I that I don't even have to worry about that physical aspect of safety? But I know it's important. And if you're listening to this and you feel physically unsafe at any point in your life, I encourage you to reach out to somebody, try to find a solution. I mean, and once again, this might be my privilege speaking to even think that there are ways to solve these really large issues of physical anxiety and physical safety. But I do encourage you to reach out to somebody and talk about it, and hopefully, you can find the help that you need. But that is the first, I think physical safety is the first layer in the hierarchy of needs, past, you know, oxygen, air. Let's just, let me just look up that hierarchy of needs. Let me just see here so I can speak about it. Pulling that up real quick. Let's see. All right. So what we've got is, let's just go through the hierarchy of needs while we're here. It's a pyramid. It's a triangle. So imagine a triangle, and it's broken off into sections. So we're going to start at the very bottom, and the very bottom is physiological needs: breathing, food, water, shelter, clothing, sleep. These are your basic physiological needs, what you need to survive. You need food, you need water, you got to have a place to live, clothing, and all of that good stuff. But the next one that's up above that is safety and security, which is interesting because I haven't looked at this in a while. And I really was thinking in my mind that safety would be right above the physiological needs. But what is the undertone of this one is health, employment, property, family, and social ability. And when I say safety, I'm not necessarily, I mean, those things are included, but I'm talking about safe spaces. And that's what is so intriguing and important to me is existing in a safe space. Let's just continue up the triangle here. We have love and belonging next, friendship, family, intimacy, sense of connection. Next level up is self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, the need to be unique. And at the very top, we have self-actualization, morality, creativity, spontaneity, acceptance, experience, purpose, meaning, and inner potential. So when I'm talking about mindfulness, a lot of that mindfulness is self-actualization. This is the highest point in the triangle. How do we get here if we don't feel safe? And that's why I think safety is the foundation. It's the most important aspect to get right so that we can build on top of it. And I'm speaking this from experience because I noticed a shift in my life when I went from feeling unsafe to feeling safe. And I had a default filter on that caused me to see most situations as unsafe. And I kind of operated and navigated the world from an unsafe perspective. And when I say unsafe, I'm talking really psychological safety. I'm not safe. My feelings aren't safe. It's not safe to express who I am. It's not safe to be authentic. It's not safe for me to express my energy levels and take naps and admit when I'm tired. It's not safe for me to take breaks at work. It's not safe for me to set boundaries. All of these psychological aspects to safety. And once again, I know the physical part is there, and I'm not trying to discredit that. And I realize that's a barrier as well. I mean, if we were to break the triangle down, physical safety would come before psychological safety. If you don't feel safe physically, well, of course, you're not going to have time to even think about your psychological safety. But that's what I'm sort of discussing here is, after you've made it past the physical safety part, what does psychological safety look like? How can you create psychological safety for others? How can you create psychologically safe spaces? Whose responsibility is it to create the safe space? Should it come from a place internal, or is it an external thing? My interest in safe spaces really came when I started thinking about my transformational life coaching journey. As I began to coach people, I would say, I want you to know this is a safe space. And I would say that, but what does that mean? What does that mean to them? What does it mean to me? It could be two different things. I mean, the word safety brings up a lot of different emotions in different people. So when I say I want you to know this is a safe space, what am I really getting at? And how can I describe that in a way that is more acute? How can I understand what people need to feel psychological safety? And when I say that, what I mean and my intention is this is a safe space. This is a non-judgmental space. So I'm not going to be here judging you. This is a space where I'm not going to be verbally abusive or aggressive towards you. This is a collaborative space where I have an openness and a willingness to learn more about you. And this is a space where you and I can coexist and be respectful of one another's thinking, thought process, beliefs, and truly just exist together. There's a certain level of peace and calm that I associate with feeling safe. And I think psychologically, when you feel safe, you're able to express yourself. You're able to truly find change and explore your thoughts. And that's the goal of a coach, is to create that safe space, to create a space where you feel like you can exist wholly, authentically. So, thinking of that got me really curious about safe spaces in other aspects of our lives. Psychologically safe spaces. We're going to assume that most people have gotten the physical aspect of it correctly. Employment, religion. When you go out to a restaurant, you typically aren't worried about your physical safety, at least here in the United States. Once again, that's my privilege talking. But here in the United States, when you go somewhere, you don't really have to worry about your physical safety. And of course, I'm saying that from a male's perspective. I mean, maybe there are people who worry about their physical safety. I'd be really curious to hear more. If what I'm saying offends you, or you want to correct me in any way, please send me some more information, because I'm very much in the curiosity phase of this, of safety. And I'm really trying to find my blind spots, so that as I do coach, I can consider where everyone's coming from and their perspectives. But my experience, once again, this is my experience, is that I have not felt the physical. I have not felt physically unsafe in these places, but I have felt psychologically unsafe. And that's been what I've struggled with mostly. So it started out in church. I grew up Southern Baptist in Alabama, and I remember the particular church that I attended was very psychologically unsafe. There was a very strict set of rules placed upon me. There was a very strict way of being, of showing up, of communicating. And it was all very, it was very intense. And so that was the very first encounter I had with feeling psychologically unsafe, was in church, which I'm learning now that's the place where you should feel fully accepted to be yourself. I mean, if we're talking about God's love, it's, boy, they kind of had that so wrong. That was the place I felt the least safe. And so, something's got to be backwards there. Then as I was growing up, it was when I came out as gay, and I was 16 or 17. That was psychologically unsafe. It wasn't met with acceptance or comfort or understanding. It was met with aggression and confusion and frustration, and I love everyone in my life, but the way that was handled was very psychologically damning for me. It caused a lot of years of issues where I didn't trust people. I didn't trust expressing myself to people, because when I had trusted something that was so important to me, it was met with it was met with a lot of undertones, like, you're broken, what you're doing is wrong, like your very essence is sinful. That was psychologically unsafe. And then the workplace, and this is my homosexual lens of psychological safety. And I'm sure everyone has their own version. They have their own struggles that they've dealt with, especially, like I said, I'm a white man. I probably have only gotten a small portion of this, a small portion of what it feels like to feel unsafe. As a white gay man, I've experienced the gay portion of it, but what else is out there? Who else is out there feeling unsafe? And who might not even realize that it's feelings of unsafe due to the fact that they've just always been living that way. It's just a normal day. But as I've gotten older, I've began to express myself authentically. I've began to surround myself with people who make me feel safe. I began to become more unapologetic about who I am. I've joined a church who is accepting of all people and shows everyone love and respect. And I have an amazing husband who makes me feel safe every day, just existing with him. I have wonderful friends who support and love me. And so a lot of these things have really came to a crescendo as of late. And my lens of safety has shifted from unsafe to safe. I have a default of, yeah, you're safe, you're fine. And that has been life-changing. Being able to operate from a safe space, psychological safe space, has allowed me to climb up the hierarchy of needs. I'm no longer stuck trying to find psychological safety. And I'm looking at the pyramid in front of me. That's the layer above needing water and food. So you're not really making it up that high when you feel unsafe. But as I began to get experience in the world showing my authentic self, so this was the problem, right? When I encountered all these unsafe spaces, I began to no longer show my authentic self. I didn't want to risk it. I felt unsafe, and therefore I never showed who I was. And because I never showed who I was not giving anyone the opportunity to show me that I actually existed in a safe reality. Because I limited my exposure, I was also limiting reality's ability to show me a different way. So for years, I just felt unsafe and I didn't show who I was. I wasn't authentic. I was scared to be myself. And I just assumed it was an unsafe world due to the limited exposure and experience I had had. But that's not the case. I'm here to tell you that's not the case. That's your experience so far, but that's not the truth. And I just made a MindfulBit video about your expectations of reality versus the reality you actually exist in. And a lot of times there's a huge gap there. My expectation of reality was that it was unsafe, that people would hurt me when I showed them who I was, that the most authentic and raw, vulnerable parts of myself weren't to be trusted with other people, that I should keep all of that to myself. That was my expectations of reality. But reality is much more complex and grand and chaotic and beautiful than that. That was my limited experience. As I began to be brave and courageous and start to show myself once again, this time it was met with love, acceptance, compassion, empathy, respect. And not every time was that the case as I began to show who I was. But I began to find and attract my tribe, the people who kind of feel similar to me, see the world like I do. And I began to gain new experience, and I began to develop evidence that maybe the world isn't as unsafe as I thought it was. Maybe there is a such thing as being authentic and feeling safe. And I mean, I know you can hear that. It can come in one ear and go out the other. And you hear the word safe. But to truly grasp how profound it is to move from an unsafe default state of mind to a safe state of mind, it really changes everything. It really changes everything. I mean, because the next three rungs on the hierarchy of needs are love and belonging. If you don't feel safe psychologically, you cannot achieve true love and belonging. If you don't feel safe psychologically, your self-esteem is shot. And the top of the hierarchy, self-actualization. How can you self-actualize? How can you self-actualize if you don't feel safe psychologically? So this whole conversation and this whole thought process, one thing that stands out to me is that we don't know how people feel. We don't know what people are going through. We don't know oftentimes our own privilege. As I'm saying this, there are probably people listening that say, wow, I've never felt physically unsafe. I've never felt psychologically unsafe. I can't relate. And to know that people can say that and not relate to something that has been so profoundly impactful to my life, it makes me wonder what other nuances are out there that people are struggling with that just completely don't even register with me. And I'm curious to find out. I want to become a better person. I want to listen. I want to know these stories. I want to use these stories to help people with my coaching. But all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I just hope that this podcast has gotten you to think about safety. How can you make other people feel safe? How can you ask questions? Hey, right now, is there anything that I can do that could help put you at ease or make you feel safer? What does safety look like for you in your relationships? Hey, what can I do to make you feel safer? This has been another MindfulBit podcast. I love to say at the end of these that throughout the entire vastness of space and time, I mean, so vast, you're here and I'm here, and we're connecting today. We're connecting today, and that's a miracle. That's a miracle. Always practice gratitude, and I'm just so grateful to have you here. I look forward to what the future brings. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to email me at mindfulbitcoaching@gmail.com. You can find me on YouTube. Just do a search for MindfulBit. You'll see my MindfulBit videos. I'll have podcasts uploaded there as well. And until the next one, stay safe, stay curious, and stay mindful. Bye-bye.